What's up, guys? It's time for another Q&A on November 12th, 2019. It was open Q&A this week, so of course, variety of questions. And we will get right into it. So, first one, colonic hydrotherapy. Experiences or thoughts? I think I've asked before but couldn't find it. I have no experience with it. I'm always up to try different things. Nowhere around here that I know of that does it, and I haven't really had a need to do it. I'm able to maintain pretty good digestion without cleansing my colon. But, I've had clients that have done it before and reported some temporary benefits. I don't know like what kind of long-term benefits it has. You're going to see a lot of mixed literature on it. It's not something that is super accepted or utilized in the science community or medical community. So, take that for what it's worth. But it seems safe, at least from what I've read and understand. So, it's something you want to try. I would see how it goes. What would happen if a natural female used an aromatase inhibitor? Would it suppress estrogen or raise testosterone, or would it do anything because they naturally produce estrogen, unlike males? So, okay. So females produce their own estrogen, whereas males primarily are just aromatizing testosterone and estrogen. And aromatase inhibitor is acting on the aromatase enzyme. So if there's not much aromatase activity, aka females, then it's not going to do much. I definitely see the thought there. Now, there is a little bit of aromatase activity in females. They do still have aromatase enzyme, and it's still some of that activity. But yeah, it's not going to have a dramatic effect at all like it would on males in terms of changing the amount of estrogen in the body. So yeah, you have the right idea in your question for sure. That's why like contest prep, for example, you're probably gonna see more benefit from something like Nolvadex, simply because it's blocking the estrogen. It actually can block the endogenous estrogen at the receptor site that's already there, so it's blocking it from working on the receptor, whereas aromatase inhibitors is trying to lower estrogen via aromatase inhibition, but there's not much aromatase activity anyhow, so it's not doing as much, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, it wouldn't have the same effect in females. Now, it is used for breast cancer in postmenopausal women because they do get a good amount of their estrogen via aromatization versus a premenopausal. So that's a little bit different situation because the hormone profile is different. Now, let's see. Next one. Why would hemoglobin A1C be low and blood glucose be normal? Do they not go hand in hand? Yeah, they do go hand in hand. So, but the hemoglobin A1C is a long-term look at average blood glucose essentially over time, over multiple months. Now, the issue there is that blood glucose in and of itself is very dynamic. It changes all the time. So you could see different readings for a whole huge number of reasons, and that's going to only put a very small dent in your A1C overall. So you just came out of a contest prep a month ago. Well, your blood sugar is probably rising after you're introducing more food and you're losing a little bit of insulin sensitivity slowly, but your A1C is only like barely moved and it's still relatively low on the end, or you had a stressful night or you didn't sleep that good one night, fasted blood glucose is up. That's not going to affect A1C that much because it's just one snapshot. So yeah, they do go hand in hand, but you got to think big picture versus snapshot. In general, for a very prolonged off season, 2 to 5 years, do you prefer stints of surplus, i.e. 16 weeks followed by mini cuts, or one long surplus to solidify hypertrophy? Create a new set point before a long diet. Short bulks, cuts versus long bulks. and getting a little softer. That's hard to answer because, I mean, yeah, you want to solidify hypertrophy. Like, I think some people are too quick to go into mini cuts like right after a certain point of surplus, and they don't really solidify it, or as I say, let the gains marinate, or they don't hold new body weights or size, etc. But at the same time, you can be sloppy for a little while, but I mean, eventually you're just going to be so insulin resistant and just putting on body fat and not really, it's not doing anything. You're not partitioning nutrients well. You're not gaining any more muscle. You're causing a lot of inflammation, all these things. So you're going to be better off doing a resensitizing period of some type. Now, there's no way that I could say, yes, 16 weeks, not. I mean, someone coming out of a contest could go months and months and months and months and months because they're starting in an insulin sensitive state. If you do a mini cut and you get pretty insulin sensitive and set yourself up, I mean, 16 weeks is just an arbitrary number, so it could go even longer than that. Some people, they just don't maintain sensitivity that long and they get fat quicker and they just can't go as long. So yeah, I mean, just totally based on the individual and what their specific tendencies are and what the backstory is there. But yeah, for sure, I wouldn't be super quick to jump into mini cuts, and if you haven't like held new body weights for at least a decent amount of time. 1,000 IUs of a week of HCG during a 300 milligram of test cycle. Would you expect to have some LH blood work results less than 1 at 5 weeks when baseline was 4.2? So HCG doesn't really raise LH, so it's just mimicking it, essentially, is what's happening. So low LH while using HCG is pretty normal from what I've seen in lab work. Now, it will mimic it and help the Leydig cells do their thing, so you can produce testosterone, but it doesn't, like I said, it's not raising luteinizing hormone. So that's why you're seeing that. And it's a little deceiving on the labs. It could still be providing some benefit, but you're not seeing it in the form of increased luteinizing hormone. So yeah, that's what's going on there, most likely. I noticed a lot of breakfast cereals and cream of wheat have very high iron content. Should enhanced individuals avoid cereals to avoid excessive iron intake? Maybe. I mean, test your iron levels. That's the easiest way to do it. Like, I mean, if somebody's enhanced or not, I mean, obviously that does add another variable in there that could make the situation worse. But if someone's consuming tons of iron via these fortified breakfast cereals or fortified, whatever, grains or whatever foods, fortified foods, then I would check it. Next time you get labs, put iron and ferritin levels on there and check and see what they are. That's the best policy, rather than just guessing. It's easy to add iron or ferritin levels to the lab work, and you'll know. Even or if you donate blood, they'll tell you what your iron levels are when you donate. So you can go do that. It's a free way to do it if you want. Okay. All right, a couple more here. When someone in the later stages of prep notices it's hard to really get their heart rate up during cardio, especially in the morning, is it usually indicative of low cortisol from taxed adrenals or something else? And how do you combat it? Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying there. So if your adrenals are very, very taxed and you're like adrenal insufficiency state, then you might have that lower heart rate. However, you're just cardio adapted at that point. Just like take an endurance athlete, they're probably going to have a lower resting heart rate than your average Joe or even a bodybuilder, because their cardiovascular system's conditioned that way. So you're burning less calories during your cardio essentially as the prep goes on anyhow. You just become more efficient Your body wants to become more efficient because it wants to preserve what it has. It wants to preserve fat. It wants to preserve its energy stores and what have you. So that's most likely what's happening. You got to be pretty burnt out to have low cortisol, like completely high cortisol for a while and completely just smash your adrenals, and then you'll bottom out eventually. But yes, that could be part of it. And a person like that would have have a hard time with their heart rate anytime, whether they're contest prep or not. But it's most likely just because the person's cardio adapted from doing cardio for a long period of time, or having done it for, regularly for a long time. One-legged split squat on the Smith. What's the difference of using the front foot forward and elevated versus front foot on the ground and back when resting on a bench? Okay, so think about, like, you would feel it for one. So if you're front, you can think about a couple things. If your feet are wider apart, it's going to stretch the hamstrings out. You're going to probably use more hamstring and glute. If your foot's going up higher, you're most likely going to feel that, again, that more glute and hamstring lengthening and stretching there, versus if your foot is down and back in a little bit, you're going to get more quad activation with that range of motion. So that's probably the main difference that you're going to notice between foot elevated and if you're talking about the front foot elevated and the front foot down. The front foot elevated probably going to get a little more hamstring, and the front foot down, you're probably going to feel a little more quad. Back foot would be the opposite, though. Your trailing leg, you're not really doing a whole lot, but if you had your trail leg elevated, you'd probably feel it stretch your quad out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that's what they're asking. Front foot elevated versus front foot on the ground. Yeah, one's quad, one's more hamstring. And then again, like I said, length of space between your feet. Shorter is probably going to feel a little more quad. Wider is probably going to feel a little more hamstring. Okay, that's it for this week, guys. I appreciate the questions.